Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, continuing our deep dive into this Ole Miss program heading into spring practice in the 2024 season. We took a look at the offensive line, took a look at the defensive line, and now we're taking a look at really what has everybody buzzing around this program, and that is the offensive skill heading into 2024. And again, we kind of highlight, and you see a lot of the national media talk about the offensive skill. I mean, the last couple of weeks, we took deep dives into that offensive line and the defensive line. Ole Miss gets much better along the line of scrimmage. I've highlighted that the last couple of weeks, but make no mistake about it, what makes this team so dangerous heading into 2024 is not only do you have one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC coming back in Jaxson Dart, not only do you arguably have the most talented wide receiver room, not only in the SEC, but in the country. I mean, it's all getting coached by Lane Kiffin, one of the best offensive-minded coaches in the country. This is an offense that it's hard to see not being one of the best units that you see in the country. Really excited to get into this one. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys. And this has been a program that honestly has just been a blast talking about, whether we're covering commitments in the transfer portal, whether we're doing deep dives. It's been a fun team to talk about, but more importantly, the amount of support you guys have shown the boys has been absolutely amazing. A ton of feedback, a ton of input. Cannot thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate y'all rocking with it. And again, would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. Players that I might be sleeping on that you think break out in 2024. I'll add them to the notebook. And without further ado, let's get into this one. And I want to start with what we saw from the 2023 year. And I think the number one thing that has me so excited about this Ole Miss offense in 2024 is not Trey Harris. It's not Juice Wells, although I'm very excited about those two guys. It starts with Jaxson Dart in the development and the jump that you saw him make from that 2022 year to that 2023 season. Was going back, looking at some numbers. I mean, you watch the film and you go back and watch some of these games, you clearly see the jump Jaxson Dart makes just by watching the film. But then you go take a look at the numbers, a little comparison of what the numbers look like from 2022 to 2023. He elevates his completion percentage by 3 points, going from 62% to 65%. But here's the number that really gets me. In 2022, 8.2 yards per attempt. In 2023, 9.4 yards per attempt. A full yard more per completion per attempt for Jaxson Dart in this Ole Miss offense with a higher completion percentage. Also took the interceptions down from 11 to only 5 in 2023. The biggest thing we wanted to see Jaxson Dart make that jump in from 2022 to 2023 was pushing the ball down the field, being more accurate, attacking that deeper third, and you saw him make that jump. And what is so exciting is what if Jaxson Dart takes another jump in 2024? That's you're talking about a Heisman Trophy caliber quarterback with Jaxson Dart. He's got Lane Kiffin calling the offense. He's got one of the most explosive wide receiver rooms to work with. I mean, you're trying to find examples and reasons to jump on this Ole Miss hype train that I'm already all aboard on. I mean, I think it's Jaxson Dart taking another step because you saw him make a massive step in 2022. What does this step, or 2023, excuse me, what does this step look like in 2024? And I have an idea of what I want that step to be. And that is Jaxson Dart, when you go back to the film, maybe holding the football a little bit too long, maybe taking a little bit too many sacks. And I mean, that gets better with experience, right? The more reps, the more games you play, the quicker you get at processing, the quicker and better you have in managing pockets. Jaxson Dart got sacked on almost 8% of his dropbacks. That was 79th in the country. So what does it look like if Jaxson Dart speeds up that processing a little bit? These wide receivers create separation a little bit more effectively. That number in terms of negative plays, in terms of sacks taken, goes down. If you see Jaxson Dart improve that part of his game, this Ole Miss offense is going to be extremely special. Now, I want to get into the wide receiver room because we talk about Jaxson Dart and what he can do in 2024. Yes, I'm on board. The wide receivers that he's going to have to work with, I think, is extremely exciting. And I think it starts with Trey Harris. And Trey Harris would have been an NFL draft pick had he wanted to go to the NFL. I think he comes back saying, one, there was probably meat left on the bone for him, who battled injuries during that 2023 season. But more importantly, I think he knows this offense can be extremely special. Trey Harris works the field vertically. I mean, about as good as any wide receiver in the country, averaged 18.3 yards per reception, phenomenal body control, big physical frame. This is a guy that is going to go help your quarterback down the field, attacking that deeper third. And what excites me the most is you have Trey Harris, excuse me, a wide receiver that safeties and defenses need to respect in terms of what he does down the field. And then you bring in a guy in Juice Wells who really excels working the middle of the field, excels after the catch. And how does that open up an offense? And I think Juice Wells is going to have a lot of that middle of the field to work with Trey Harris being on the boundary, right? There's going to be safeties that need to play that boundary to watch for Trey Harris. And I think Juice Wells, a guy that going back to the 2022 year was arguably the best receiver in the SEC. And the guy that had over 550 yards after the catch in 2022, Juice Wells, with all that room to operate, kind of built like a running back, playing that wide receiver role, a guy that can play the boundary, can play the slot, I think is going to feast with Trey Harris. I think they balance each other out extremely well. And then you have a guy in Jordan Watkins who I just think is old reliable. And at times you saw Jaxson Dart really have the most confidence in a guy like Jordan Watkins. So you have Jordan Watkins, just old reliable. You kind of inject Deion Smith into this roster that, again, you're talking about a former top 100 national recruit who went the JUCO route after a short stint at LSU. I mean, I know a lot of Ole Miss fans that are excited about Deion Smith, and I'd even throw in another wide receiver in Aiden Williams, who is, again, going only into his second year of college football. You heard a lot of buzz around Aiden Williams in spring practice and fall camp last year. This might be the coming out party. And I don't know how much opportunity he's going to get with Trey Harris and Juice Wells there and Jordan Watkins coming back, but he's a guy that you got to keep an eyeball on in terms of what Ole Miss can do. That is, 5 wide receivers that are probably starting in most programs across the country, an extremely exciting wide receiver room for Jaxson Dart to work with. And to add on to that, I think you have one of the stronger tight end rooms in Caden Prescorn, who we all know what Caden Prescorn can do. But for the Ole Miss fans that have been rocking with the fellas for the last couple of weeks, Daquan Wright, coming from Virginia Tech, you're talking about a 240-pound tight end that runs an 11-second 100-meter dash. Did really good work at Virginia Tech, just in an offense that really couldn't push the ball down the field. I don't think it's crazy, and this is not me knocking Caden Prescorn. I don't think it's crazy to say Daquan Wright might lead that tight end position group in receiving yards just from what he can do from an athletic trait standpoint. Super raw, but very, very high upside in Daquan Wright. These pass catchers that are going to be surrounding Jaxson Dart, it's really exciting. And I think the one question you have is, all right, Ole Miss runs the ball 56% of the time on the offense side of the football. That's top 25 in the country. What is this running back room going to look like? One, I think you improve the offensive line heading into 2024. You obviously lose a guy like Quinshon Judkins, who we talked about. That obviously hurts. But you start looking at this running back room. I was looking at some numbers. I mean, Ulysses Bentley, he was a guy that averaged more yards per carry than Quinshon Judkins in 2023, averaged more yards after contact than Quinshon Judkins in 2023, and also was a guy that caught 11 out of 12 targets as a pass catcher. I think a lot of Ole Miss fans, Quinshon Judkins, that hurts when 100% are looking at this Ole Miss running back room saying, we believe in what Ulysses Bentley can do for this program in 2024. And I think a lot of Ole Miss fans during the 2023 season, I know I was saying, probably would want to see a little bit more of Ulysses Bentley. We're going to get to see him in 2024. And you add to the depth. You have a guy like Logan Diggs, who has played a ton of football, had a phenomenal season for LSU. You get him coming in the transfer portal. And then Riscano, the young running back. I mean, Lane Kiffin has had a really good job at identifying some of these talented running backs, bringing them in from high school that were kind of maybe a little slept on. I think Riscano could be that guy as well. You got 3 running backs that you're extremely excited about as well. And so all this to say, I think this offensive line, we talked about it 2 weeks ago. I think that gets better. And I think you have Jaxson Dart that you're expecting to take another step in 2024. He certainly has the weapons on the outside to do so. I mean, if Jaxson Dart takes a step, this offensive line gets better. I think it's unquestionably that this pass catcher room gets better. This Ole Miss offense, again, this is a team that just won 11-2 with their only losses being on the road to Georgia, on the road at Alabama. What is this team going to look like in 2024? I think it's a sleeping giant. I know a lot of people are giving and kind of jumping on the hype train. And you start looking at this depth chart saying, yeah, rightfully so. Now, how does this all come together? That's a question that you have to ask. But I will say, mean, Lane Kiffin has had a lot of success going to the transfer portal and bringing a lot of guys in. You have some questions for some other programs in terms of, oh, you're taking 25 plus guys in the portal. How's that going to look? I mean, Lane Kiffin's done this. He has experience doing this. He has experience installing offenses with new faces. I think Lane Kiffin's got this down. If he can maximize this roster, this is going to be one of the more dangerous teams that you see in the SEC, that you see in the country. Next week, we take a look at the back end of this Ole Miss defense. Extremely excited to get into that as well. Can't thank you guys enough for rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.